All right, so good evening, everybody. We're gonna commence our program Wednesday, February 12th. And we're starting at about 5:33. And I'm gonna do roll call because right here, we have a quorum. I know that Joe will not be joining us, so in order to establish a quorum, Josh Fay.
I am present.
Okay, Kate Ryan.
Right, I'm here.
And Bill Marachek. So we have.
I didn't get that. Could you try again?
Josh
I'm so sorry.
Fay is present. Try again.
President. Oh. Okay, so we have a quorum and we're gonna move on to the approval of the minutes, and we have. And I wanna recognize that we have 1, 2, 3 people who have joined with us. 4. That looks like more, yes.
4. Yes.
All right. Glad to have everybody with us. We're going to do the minutes. We have the minutes of January 8th, 2025 in the packet. Do I have any comments or questions?
Not for me, I prepared them.
One of the things that I'd like to be able to just make a note of, Aaron, that perhaps at our next meeting, we can have Melissa join us, and she can share with us her role, and she'll introduce herself to the personnel board, and
Sure.
I think that would be a good
Sounds good.
agenda item. Okay, so I'll entertain a motion to approve these minutes.
So moved.
All right, second.
Can I second? If there are, yes, I
Yeah.
second.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then all in favor, Kate,
Yes.
and Josh?
Yes.
And Bill Marachek, yes, okay.
Can I ask did you decide who was
Oh,
taking minutes?
that's right.
I think I'm actually up, so I just,
Okay.
How about it?
I just wanna make sure that
There you
I
go. Well,
start
thank
taking
you.
notes.
Yeah.
So I don't miss anything.
Thank you. Okay, we're gonna go next to the Assistant Town Manager, Director of Human Resources report.
Hi there. Can everyone hear me okay?
Yes, you don't sound great though.
No, I'm down with the dreaded flu that apparently has
Oh.
been making its rounds. So I'm sorry I can't be there with all of you tonight, but
Feel
and
better.
I'm going to spare you all the camera view as well because it ain't pretty. So you have in your packet the usual report. I don't think there's anything crazy different on this. Things are just pretty much slow and steady as it comes to recruitment and hiring. I think we've got, Aaron, correct me, I think there's about 10 or 12 open positions right now. And we continue to plug away on working through those. I sent out, I think, to all of you, February's Inclusion Chronicles. That's our new monthly DEI awareness one pager. And like I said, I'm pretty sure I sent it to all of you on email, but if not, I will do so after the meeting. That's been getting a really good response so far. And then just other general HR things. We're working through the annual ACA reporting. That's actually something Melissa's working on. I heard you just mention you want to have her come to a meeting. And then we're gearing up for getting ready for open enrollments in the coming months. We've gotten the new rates, which are definitely a little higher than anticipated, but we are dealing with that and working through the budget and all things associated with that. And I think that is pretty much all I have for this month for my update, unless there's any questions.
This is Bill. Would you put me on your list to send that flyer?
Yes.
Okay.
I don't think I got that either, Jess, though I'd be happy to
Okay.
look at it. Did
Put
you?
out.
Yeah, I saw it. That's weird.
I'll send again, no worries. It's a good read, so I want everybody to see it.
Yeah, no, it's a good communication tool. So The only thing I would like to request is on the regular status hires and terminations. That you put. I don't think this will be terribly difficult, but put in the one, in the future, the 1/31/2024. You give us a backward look at what it was a year ago. And we then can see what the change has been. And I would find that informative. I think it's good data that would be helpful.
No, I agree. And we'll be able to show a lot more historical data and more accurate data once we make our shift to Munis. I know that we've talked about this report a little bit before. And one of the biggest things is it doesn't really accurately capture the vacancies. So that's why sometimes numbers, it looks like we've added FTE when really we haven't. So that's definitely something that we're hoping to have improved once we make our switch to Munis, which again is still full steam ahead for April 1st conversion. So we're getting really excited about that.
I think, yes, I understand that the Munis is going to add a tremendous capability to data and to, the work that the Concord Human Resources Department is charged with doing. Okay, so we're gonna move on to the next item, which is the classification action.
That's me. So tonight we're presenting the proposed new classification for the CMLP Financial Manager Accountant. The position's been vacant actually since September of 2024, and we've been actively recruiting without much success in attracting qualified candidates. So after multiple unsuccessful phone screens and interviews, Jason Bolger, the CMLP director, and Jason's on the call as well. We reviewed the job description, looked at the grading in more detail, really tried to assess whether there were any adjustments needed. And we found that the job description had an accurate reflection of the role. But when we looked at the factor analysis that was used for the grading, we identified that there was a factor that did warrant an increase, and it brought the position to a grade 16. Oh, I'm sorry, it's a 13.
Yeah.
I had a typo in my notes, to a grade 13. So the other piece of this classification change is that we're proposing to bring this position over to the light plant pay grid. So there's the town pay grid and the light plant pay grid. We're proposing to bring it over there. Given the uniqueness of the CMLP and municipal light utilities sitting within a town organization, we feel that these adjustments really align better or more closely with comparable communities and strengthens our ability to attract and retain talent in this role. Jason, did you want to add anything to that?
I'll just mention, thank you, Aaron and Bill. I'll just mention that previous to the class and comp plan that was implemented a couple of years ago, this role was on the CMLP pay schedule. And, there was an attempt to sort of pull a few positions over, but we just really felt like this one belonged back with the CMLP schedule. But Aaron had a great summary of the factors and the change. So happy to answer any questions that the board has.
I'm interested in knowing, if there are other positions that are candidates to be moved to the CLMP pay schedule?
That's a great question. One of the town manager's priority goals for the current fiscal year is to take a look at the governance of CMLP. And I know that one of the factors she wanted to consider was the having a separate pay schedule and which employees, if any, should remain on the town as opposed to move over to the CMLP. At the time, I think that there was a desire to try to see how many people could go over to the town plan, but I do think that both town council and CMLP council have weighed in and think that that's pretty unstandard for the other 40 MLPs in the state. So I can't answer that question right now, but I know that the town manager is eager to look at that and make sure that we figure out a policy that makes sense for CMLP and for the town.
So my reaction to this, which, you know, is, I mean, obviously you have to run the CMLP, but, to what extent does the salary grade minimum and midpoint maximum, how does that differ in the CMLP structure for, I guess, say 13 versus the town's other structure?
I can pull up the chart.
I don't know if I was clear
Yeah.
I think we understand the question. Either I
Yeah.
can pull it up or Aaron, you can pull it up.
Oh, yeah, I have the chart up. So previously it was a 12, and so the anticipated hiring range was 92 to 110. And this change makes it a little bit more competitive in that it would be going to 113 to 135.
Okay, what I'm not understanding, I guess, is that is the CLMP pay schedule then have the same minimum, midpoint and maximum?
No,
Okay, so you gave us the 12 and the 13 under which structure?
the 12 was under the town structure. And the 13 was the light plant structure.
So what would the 12 have been under the light plant structure?
106 to 127.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe up to grade 7, the two match. And then above grade 7, there's a deviation where the CMLP range is higher than the town range, but they are the same for the lower grades.
Yes.
All right, thank you. It's having been in other similar situations, excuse me, in the private sector, you know, you come up with schemes and structures that help you essentially to improve your hiring ability, I guess, when ranges change. And I guess it's consistent with clearly what we have approved over the past in terms of the compensation structure. So I'm just pointing out a little bit of a concern about how we're manipulating in some ways this two different structures in order to increase the range because of the fact that we need to have greater capacity in order to hire somebody, because the old 12 wasn't working. Now, yes, there were reasons why you moved from 12 to 13, but you did it for a practical reason.
To answer your earlier question, I do foresee that, you know, all of the employees potentially on the town's schedule would move over to the light plant. And I think we were looking at this vacancy as an opportunity to do that because it was vacant, as opposed to waiting until we were ready to, you know, move a plan forward for something else. And again, I think that those particulars are still being discussed, but we just thought that with there being a vacancy, especially one that's been unfilled since September, and knowing what the other 40 MLPs pay, and also that 3 of the other department managers or division managers at CMLP are on the CMLP schedule, on the LP schedule, not on the town schedule. That this is one of only 2 that are not on the CMLP schedule, that it made sense.
And the title is the same, or the title is now different.
The same.
They're the same.
Any other thoughts or
We have this exact title also on the town schedule. It's not just the CMLP schedule, right? This title exists in other departments.
Will be confirmed.
I don't believe there are any other staff on the town side that have this title, but Aaron will confirm.
Okay.
I don't think there's anybody on the town side that has that title.
I don't think so. I was just searching through the
Okay,
class and
thanks.
comp schedule.
All right, I think, any other discussion, conversation? I don't know if there's any, anyone on Zoom, but there no hands, are
Hmm?
there? I can't.
No,
No,
no.
I was just making sure no one was in the waiting.
Oh,
room.
okay. So I guess I'll entertain a motion to,
I'll move that we approve the change in salary grade from a 12 to a LP 13 for the title of financial manager accountant.
yeah.
Oh, second, sorry.
Okay. And all in favor, Josh,
Yes.
and Kate,
Yes.
and Bill Rodcheck, yes.
Thank you.
Thank you for your time.
Thanks, Jason.
Jason, that was, thank you
Yeah.
so much for that, very helpful. Very
I was
helpful.
happy to be here. Thank you.
Perfect sense.
Okay. I guess we're to item 5, discussion and vote of amendments to PPP 11, administration of sick leave.
Yes, so I've got this one. So this is yet another, actually it's an improvement for employees, but it's also cleanup. I think there was a total of sick leave discussion amongst, I think it was 3 different EPPs. This basically, first and foremost, consolidates everything related to sick leave into one place, one policy. And then the big change to note is we've currently had in place a policy where you can only use up to 5 days of your sick leave for a family member. So the biggest example that often comes up is somebody's got a sick child at home. So they're allowed to use up to 5 days of their time. And then once they hit that limit, they either have to use vacation, go unpaid, what have you. So this is something that I discussed through with the town manager, and she and I were both of the mindset that, we give people sick time to use, and, if it's for a valid illness for themselves, for a child, for a medical appointment, that they should be allowed to use that. So the biggest change again on this policy just removes that limitation of only having 5 days available to take care of, again, a sick family member. So this is definitely viewed as something that will be, more friendly to employees, particularly those employees who have younger families that often get sick and need that time available to use. So that is essentially the changes in there. And then I think some of the other edits are just some little rewording and reshifting around. There's pieces that are copied and pasted over. For example, the sections from PPP 43 that represent the sick leave language, those have been moved into there so that the red lines look worse than what it really is. But again, this is just further cleanup and increasing some benefits for our employees.
All right, any comments or thoughts?
I had one on, under, medical certification documentation, it says, if an employee requires six or more days of consecutive sick leave, they must complete paperwork for FMLA. I just that I've run into the issue where we've had a newer employee who's not eligible for FMLA. If they haven't worked the 12 months within the 1,200, I think it's 1,250 hours, they're not eligible. So I don't know if you wanted to add a little, if eligible, or if you just want everyone to fill it out, even whether they're eligible or not, and then you'd move forward in that process, but that was the only thing that I saw.
That makes sense.
That's a good point, Kate. So I know typically what we do is even if somebody's not eligible for FMLA, if they need to be out for an extended leave, I mean, these things do happen, right? When people
Yeah.
are newly hired, we still typically will have them complete the the forms and the paperwork just to help us get the documentation to then be able to, work with them and give them what they might need for time off. It's just never formally designated as FMLA leave because obviously they can't qualify for that if they haven't been here the year. So, I mean, we could certainly add the word eligible, but that would be essentially our process. If you're not eligible for FMLA leave, we at least have you, gather the same type of documentation to help us formulate a step forward.
I don't know, from the employee's perspective, I guess you just need to be really clear that that they're not eligible for job protected leaves, that, if they fill out, I'm just worried that the employee will assume if they're filling out an FMLA form, that means they're eligible for FMLA, so
It's a
Yeah.
fair thought.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that's,
Yeah.
that would be a problem. So what is the follow-up, Jess, on?
So I think
appointed
quickly
leaves?
add, I think we can add in there like if eligible in parentheses after where it says after the 6 days. That seems easy enough. It makes it a little clearer and tighter.
Josh,
There's no change to the accrual rate, right? This is the same as it
Oh,
was
no,
before.
same accrual is in place. This just releases that 5-day cap for family.
Can I just ask you also, with the sick leave payoff for employees hired before July 1st, 92, do you know the number of people currently working for the town who were hired before that date?
I don't, but it's not many. I want to
Yeah.
say it's like 5 or less, but we can
Yeah.
certainly get that
No, it's
figure.
just that, I mean, it's not that long ago that there would be, I mean, it's 34 years or whatever, but 33 years.
Just
Just
34
that
years.
if there weren't still people who hired past that date, I would take this out altogether, but it
Oh,
sounds like we're
absolutely,
not there
absolutely.
yet. Yeah.
Yeah.
No, but we will be getting there. That's quite a long run if you've been here since 92.
Yeah. I would imagine there aren't that many still, but.
I wanted to just have you talk about the use of the word may, M-A-Y, I'm looking at Roman numeral 5. And it goes on to page 3, the town may require documentation. I'm interested in knowing how do you think that decision is made and who makes it?
Typically it's made by human resources, and usually this is something where, we would require the documentation if there's a suspected sick leave abuse situation going on. It's mostly just to, protect our right to be able to get that documentation if we feel that there's anything happening that shouldn't be.
The problem I see is that if you're not consistent, you raise yourself to the point where there can be some clearly objections taking place about somebody didn't have to do it and somebody did, and it can be a circular wheel here, but you leave it to your judgment as to whether or not you want to do anything with it. And it's sort of the same thing about may, in the third paragraph, may also require medical certification prior to an employee's return to work following an absence. I know when I was working, we required it, and we wanted to make certain there wasn't any liability associated with somebody being back at work when in fact they were not medically able to be there. So I don't know what your experience has been, Jess, or if this is even a relevant point to consider. But I know this is the way that it's always worked in the town of Concord, but since we're going through and we're looking at and making revisions, does this make sense to? I don't know,
Yeah,
Josh.
I mean, if somebody's been out for like a surgery or even when they're out like on a workers' comp claim, things like that, there's always documentation that's submitted prior to their return to work. And then, certain situations, like if you have somebody who has taken 12 weeks off for the birth of a child and they've literally just been on their maternity leave, like usually we don't require, a full doctor's note to come back if there's somebody that works like in a desk position, for example. But obviously somebody that works like in public works who's maybe been out with like a broken leg and they have a physical job, it kind of just really depends on the nature of what the medical absence has been and what that person's job function is.
Okay, I mean, I certainly understand that, and there is some judgment that has to take place, and the human resources organization has a responsibility to try to ensure consistency across all employees, and whatever procedures are in place, they need to again think about the consistency. Because people tend to get upset if they feel that they're being treated differently.
Oh,
And that's
sure.
And that's not consistent with maintaining a good workforce. Okay, any other comments or questions? All right, so you need then a motion in order to approve the amendment to PPP 11.
Correct.
I move to accept the revised PPP 11 sick leave policy revised as of February 12th, 2025.
Second.
Very good. Okay, all in favor, John?
Yes.
Kate?
Yes.
And Bill, yes. We're on to item 6, review and vote of draft articles for the annual town meeting.
Yes.
I just wanted to note, sorry, to go back to the sick time
As
thing.
amended.
No, PPP 43 was amended as well because those pieces were incorporated into PPP 11. I just wanted to make
Good
that
point.
clear for you guys.
Well, also we had. The
Yeah,
motion
we did that.
should have said as amended because you were gonna add the language and then we also have to amend 43,
Yes,
right?
yep.
So I guess I'm
I'm sorry.
No, it's
Do we
okay.
need to
Um,
add that PPP 43?
Well,
Yes.
should we do that in a separate motion?
Yes,
We can
yes,
do that
yes,
separately,
yeah.
so why don't we do PPP 11 as amended, as discussed in our meeting.
Right,
With the language by that moment.
Second.
and Bill Marachek, yes, so that's.
Yes.
Yes, yes.
That is approved.
Okay,
Now,
I'll let you do this one. Or I can do it.
Wait, yeah, do it. You do it.
Okay. I move to approve the revised version of PPP 43 as shown in our packet this evening.
second, all right, all in favor, Josh?
Yes.
Kate?
Yes.
And Bill Marachek, yes. So thanks, Aaron, that was a good catch.
Okay.
Yes, thanks, Erin.
So we're now to the vote and draft of the articles for the annual town meeting.
Yes, you'll see the 2 draft articles in your packet. This seemed like a breeze this year because if you recall last year we had all the personnel bylaw changes and that was much more extensive. So we're back to the usual basics this year. So the first article is to ratify all of our various actions that were taken. Those are all listed out there. So that's the first article. And then the second article will be just the article presenting the new pay plan. So you'll see that the positions that were moved, added, deleted are reflected in red in that pay chart. And then the one final edit we'll make, which of course I didn't know before the meeting tonight, was to add in the action, the classification action for the finance position we just voted on for CMLP, and then also make that reflection on the chart. And then it will be updated as of tonight's meeting. So that would be the only changes needed unless there's anything from the board that they find glaring in either of these two articles, these should be hopefully good to go, and I can get these off to the town meeting team tomorrow.
And when is the deadline, Jess, for,
I believe it's the 18th.
okay, the 18th of February?
Tuesday. Yes, yep.
Okay,
Wow.
so we will need to approve
Yes.
these draft articles. So I will need to entertain a motion.
I can move, I move, we, go ahead.
Can I ask a question, or
Sure.
maybe this is, I'm sorry if it's not if it's a dumb question, but, so this is the, classification plan, which is separate from the plan that you mapped out for step increases and the merit. So that is
Correct.
gonna be voted town meeting. I just wanted to clarify.
Correct. This is just our pay and classification
Okay.
grid. So this is just the minimums to maximums and what grade each position is. But yes, that's not the same as the step plan and everything else. This is just the actual pay classification plan.
Good
And again,
question.
there's no shift on the dollars this year. We're not moving the classification plan by any amounts. The dollar amounts are the same, but it is going to now reflect where positions have changed and moved throughout the year.
Okay.
All right, so I move, go ahead, sorry, yeah, no rush, not in any hurry.
So this doesn't include any kind of cost of living increase, or is that incorporated in the step plan? I'm sorry if I.
Yep, so there actually is going to be no COLA adjustment this year,
Okay.
but the majority of people will be moving a step. I think there's only 4, maybe 5 people that are already at top step that won't get a step increase, but they will still be eligible for their cash merit payment. So they do still get something, assuming they've met their goals. They just won't move the step. But the bulk of the employees, like I said, all but I think 5 will move a step, assuming successful performance, which will give them 2%.
Now, do those 5 individuals know this?
They should be aware because they know that they're at top step, and we've started our budget discussions. And in part, there's no COLA increase because the budget is so incredibly tight this year. I don't know if any of you have tuned into the last couple of weeks of select board meetings, but we're definitely tightening the belt and making cuts where we can. So
Mark has his hand raised.
Yes, Mark.
So I should know this, but I just want to mention we should double check, because when we redid the personnel bylaw last year, I thought one of the things that we were doing was making it unnecessary for some things to go to town meeting and really entrusting the personnel board to handle those. And I feel like the classification matrix and maybe the normal actions were one of the things that we were saying that we were going to take care of. So I can understand it's good that this is prepared, and I think it should be in a report someplace, but I think I would just double check this against the personnel bylaw and ask ourselves whether we really have to have this on the warrant, before the 18th.
yeah, I can certainly
Good
double
point.
check, but it was my understanding from the town manager that these are 2 articles that have to get voted, that town meeting does have to ratify any of the pay and classification actions done by the personnel board.
No, but I think,
Yeah.
sorry, Mark, go ahead.
Yeah, go ahead, Bill.
Well, I think what Mark is suggesting is that because the personnel bylaw is new, and we just need to make certain that it's consistent with what the town manager is needing, saying she wants to have these articles for approval at town meeting, but it deserves a check.
Yeah, right, because this is the first year that we're operating under the new bylaw that was passed last year.
Yeah.
I actually
That's
just pulled sorry to interrupt, Mark, I just pulled up the bylaw because I wanted to check it. And it does say the personnel board shall review and approve the classification plan and present the plan to town meeting. The classification plan lists all approved town positions and a summary job description of each position covered by this bylaw. So it seems like that we do have to vote on it, right? If I'm reading that.
Present's not the same as ratified by, but okay.
Sure,
I
that's,
can certainly double check.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's just worth it.
yeah,
Yeah,
Well, it's a good point, and we'll,
okay.
you should probably just vote on it just to be on the safe side.
Yeah, I would get it. I would conditionally approve it subject to town council reviewing whether it's necessary or something like that.
right.
Agreed.
All right, so I'll entertain a motion.
Right, I move that we approve the draft articles for the annual town meeting as included in the meeting packet with the amendment to reflect the change to the light plant position we previously discussed.
Yep,
Okay, second,
oh, second,
all right, all in favor, Josh?
Yes.
Adrian?
yes,
And Bill Marachek, yes. Thank you, Mark, for that, because
yeah,
I think we would have not thought about that, so. It's the team approach. Thank you, thank you. Okay, we're ready to go on to the review and discussion of the item 7. The exit interview questionnaire.
Yes, so this is a topic that came up in our last meeting, and so I was able to pull the electronic form that we built in Microsoft Forms, and I included it in the packet here for your review.
So presently, Aaron, how is this information summarized? Where is it summarized?
So this is fairly new, and so it's all stored within Microsoft Forms right now. I've only had 4 responses, so there's not a lot of data for me to collect in terms of this exit interview questionnaire.
Are the exit interviews intended to be in person or intended to be? I mean, is it in person?
It's much preferred to do them in person, but sometimes we don't know, or the timeline between someone gives their notice and they leave is so tight that it doesn't work out, and so we give the option of doing the electronic exit interview as well.
Well, I think from my experience, well, it's nice the goal should be to try to do it in person.
It's always my goal.
Yeah.
And
It loses so much when you don't have
it does.
a person in front of you and you have an opportunity to have a dialogue and anyway.
I
So
agree. And some of these aren't required fields, so we give the employee the option to fill out whichever comments they have answers for. And so if I'm reviewing these and there's limited information in here, I'll be sure to follow up to make sure that I'm gathering as much information as I can, because with a blank form, it's kind of hard to read what was going on in that employee
So
situation.
how does it work if you're doing them in person? Do you fill out this form while they speak?
I use it more of a guideline, and then I'll fill it in.
Well,
I obviously try to aim to make it more conversational than clicking the buttons.
But if I take a look at item 4, what are your reasons for leaving? So if you have a conversation, then you're gonna say, okay, he's told me these. But if he had it in front of him, he might have said, oh, yeah, that's another reason. So do you find, I don't know if you have to, how you're gonna navigate that, or?
That's a good point. I don't think I thought about that. I think if I were to be in person with someone and they gave kind of an initial response, I would gauge my next response based on that and see if I could dig a little bit deeper. I don't know if that answers your question, really.
I know from my experience, there's some real subjectivity here in terms of how you fill out a form. I think the one item that I would encourage you to think about as a reason is commuting.
Okay.
Because I don't see, there is not a specific commuting
No,
reason.
there is not.
And I know from my experience, commuting was I mean, times, but it was a fairly significant part in many people's decisions. So I think I encourage you to add that to the form.
Okay. I appreciate your feedback.
yeah. That makes sense.
Anyone else have any? So these are not, the privacy public law, these are maintained and they're not made public. I mean, there's not a requirement if somebody were to go through and say, I'd like to see what has been communicated to the town.
I'm not sure I know the answer, Jess. Do you have any advice on that one?
I believe exit interviews are considered part of the personnel file, so they would not be public record. But we can certainly, look down the road. What we want to do is hopefully start to extrapolate some meaningful data, identify patterns, and then that's the type of material we could then use that could potentially be a public information record that would be shared with the personnel board.
All right, any other?
What do you do with the answers? And I'm looking at it, like number 5, where there's a specific event that triggered your decision to leave. Like, if this is the first you're hearing of a sexual harassment complaint or something like that, what do you do with it?
I think firstly would go to the supervisor, department head. Jess and I would certainly review
Investigate
everything.
it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because I mean, this would be discoverable in litigation, depending on what kinds of, things you write down here. It's just so long as there's a process for following up on some of the information that you get, I think is important.
Yeah.
Is there a procedural document that lays out the exit interview form and its and the requirements? I mean, just at the point actually here that Josh raised, is there any procedural document that is?
I don't think so, not at this time. Jess, do you know of any procedural
No,
document?
no, we don't. The only thing again that would really govern is if kind of like what was just brought up, if we see somebody, bring up sexual harassment, then obviously our harassment policies kick in. That's something we would address, right away, and deal with. Certainly anything that's, illegal, an employment violation, that type of thing. And then really you'll just be looking for kind of, those patterns. Sometimes this can be an effective coaching and professional development tool. Like if you consistently have people leaving from a department and they say that, I don't know, the work environment was just constantly negative, and like you hear that same feedback from every single person leaving, then it's like, okay, maybe there's some coaching that needs to be done there with that particular department. Like, why are people feeling like the department is negative all the time? Like, what's happening there? And it can be a good development opportunity for that supervisor as well.
The town had a previous questionnaire, a previous exit interview
Yes,
document?
yes, there was another electronic version, but Jess, I think you were doing them in person before, or you were aiming to do them in person.
Yes. And then you created this whole fancy form, which was way above my pay grade. So we're moving things into the digital stratosphere now, thanks to Aaron.
Was there any, in the older version? Was there any, practice of communicating with the senior management team? Any of the data, in general terms about what's taking place? For example, when I was working, I would have a meeting, one-on-one meeting with the CEO, the guy who I worked for, and, terminations and feedback about what was going on. The exit interview process was very important. And he looked at that as really a way to frame perhaps some future initiatives. So I don't know if the town manager, present or past, has ever thought about or has ever asked the Human Resources Department. And Kate, I don't know what, if you have any experience with your town manager asking for any reasons or terminations or?
I mean, yeah, I mean, in my experience, the town that I work for is a little different in how we do these. Mostly the department heads do the exit interviews, and I am involved in some of them. They do try to, I do encourage them to do them in person if possible. We don't have a forum like this, which is kind of a great, we may, borrow this. So yeah, and I do, and when I do them, I have done them on my own. I do try to provide that feedback either to the department head and the town manager when possible, but right now, we don't really have a clear way of kind of, detecting trends and, in the way that you're kind of gathering data through an electronic process, which is a little different, so.
Well, I guess I'm only suggesting this is
Yeah.
something just to think about.
Mhm.
Because this data, which is, people leaving, it's expensive.
Mhm.
It's expensive to think about replacing, training, I mean, so if there are trends or if there are critical moments, it's really something which I think the town is obligated to make certain that the town manages these.
Mhm.
Now, I'm not suggesting there's something every day at all, but turnover is expensive.
Sure is.
Okay, well, thank you for
Yeah.
including that.
Thank you for your feedback.
And I hope this has been helpful. We can move on to the non-union merit pay calculation for FY 2026.
Yes. So we did do a little bit of research into this, and definitely before July 1st, 2024, the merit increases, again, they were percentages of base versus flat dollar, which we're doing now, but they were all done on the current year salary. So the salary as of 6/30. So that's definitely important to note, because the way we did it this last time around definitely was a bit of an outlier for the reasons we stated. I don't know how much detail and discussion you want to get into tonight, but I do know that, again, because the budget situation is where it's at and the tightness of it this year, while no decisions have been made yet, I would be shocked if there was any proposal to do the merits on the new rate of pay this year. I would suspect that they would be done on the old rate of pay, which would be consistent with what was done every year with the exception of last year.
Josh, I think we had this question last time, right?
No. You brought it up last time.
I think actually you and Joe brought it up last time.
Oh.
It had come up through conversations you'd had with them.
Yeah.
So it sounds like, just from what you said, there's no, I don't know what the word is, no procedure, no policy that says that has to be changed. This is a practice. Last year was an anomaly. It's a practice.
Yes.
So since it's a practice, yes, it can be changed, and the personnel board has, at least we're aware of it, and I guess we can encourage.
Yeah, well, especially we can recognize the recommendations as far as the budget constraints, and certainly it support decisions that make sense within that. Which I would say would suggest off of the salary for the year closing as opposed to the salary for the year opening.
Right.
Would be the basis for the merit bonus.
Yeah.
So I think at least it's uniform for the three of us, then we certainly support that
And when the decision gets made, I guess maybe it's worth a conversation. If there's some discussion about how to do it, maybe that's the time to bring it up again.
Yeah, I'm hoping for the March meeting, I'll have a little bit more information on what kind of the final plan is. Like I said, they're still working through the budget. I know the plan is to have the final budget presented to the selectmen, I believe, by the end of February. So I'm hoping I'll have some more information in terms of what that's going to look like for the increases. But like I said, I am 99% certain there will be no COLA increases this year, just the step movement of 2%. And I'd be very shocked if those merit bumps were calculated on anything but the current year salary. But I should hopefully have that information after the budget is submitted at the end of the month.
Mark has his hand raised.
Yes, Mark.
So I appreciate you taking a look at this. You know, actually, this discussion causes me to think that normally, I think most organizations budget something for merit payouts. Now, whether they are paying for the previous year or the current year is a good question, but it could, I could imagine the situation where there was budgeted funds in, say, the salary reserve that could be used for merit in FY25 that, you know, might of course not be available in FY26 if the budget's that tight, but it may, just a point that it may come before you anyway, because you're talking about 2 different budget years.
Yes.
Right, that makes it a little confusing to me, but yes.
Well, what I'm saying is that you know, you could budget in to any given budget cycle an expectation that you're going to pay out some merit bonuses. And the question is, are you accruing those from that year that just completed, or are you actually funding them in the next year for the prior year? You know,
Yeah.
you know, it's just a matter of what the budgeting practice is. So I would check on that.
Mhm.
You had that, Kate, in terms of the point about what we should be checking on?
Well, yeah, no, I had the point, you mean for the minutes, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
All right, thank you, Mark. Anyone else have, yeah, okay. The next item is the personnel board presentation at the February 24th select board meeting. And,
Do we pull it up?
yeah, I prepared an outline. Actually, this is something which I did share with Mark, and got his input in terms of if this was an outline that made some sense. We're on the agenda for the 24th meeting to essentially, we have 15 minutes as I read the agenda, and we will have an opportunity, the select board will have an opportunity to talk about the charge that we have voted upon here a couple weeks ago.
Sorry, should I share this with?
Sure,
Okay.
sure.
Sorry, I just don't know how to use technology apparently.
So what I just wanted to share with everyone was that this is not controversial. This is sort of the way I thought we could organize the time we have. And I'm hoping that Liz will be able to join me for this. Do I have the wrong date up there?
Well, it says 25th.
25th or something, yeah, maybe there.
So it should be the 24th, right? It's a Monday.
Mhm.
Okay, well. I wanted to talk a little bit about the basis in the town article about the creation of the personnel board, just to make certain everybody's aware of that relationship. I wanted to recap briefly the new personnel bylaw that was implemented town meeting last year. Part of this is that we have not been in front of the select board for probably at least a year. So I was trying to catch up a little in terms of making certain that there was a record of some of this. I wanted to briefly introduce who the members of the personnel board were. And I wanted to recap of the outreach efforts that the personnel board has made to select board members as well as to the town manager. So that there's a sense that we are not, that we are operating transparent, and we're trying to do the best we can in terms of communications and letting, especially the new two new select board members, giving them a chance of who we are, what we do, and allow them to ask us questions, and that was accomplished. And then moving quickly, obviously, into the new personnel board chart. And then there'll be questions and answers. So not, I mean, controversial, just to give you a sense in terms of how I think the time will be spent at the select board meeting. Any comments? Questions?
Looks like a full 15 minutes, but all the right topics.
Yeah,
Good.
no, it looks good.
Mark has his hand raised.
Yes, Mark.
So one thing that might be interesting for you to do is listen to some of the discussion of the budget update that came up at this past Monday's select board meeting. Anthony Ansaldi presented quite a bit of information about the FTEs by department, including the vacant. And I mentioned in response to some of the there was also a citizen comment that tried to compare the staffing of certain departments, particularly HR and the town manager's departments, between the town of Concord and the town of Danvers. And I mentioned that the personnel board is currently reviewing the dashboard. You looked at it earlier this evening of the, you know, the reflecting the hiring changes that are also going on. And so I think it'd be useful for other select board members to recognize the progress that's been made at helping to track, you know, the topics that you covered tonight, the separations as well as the recruiting. Those are really priorities, and they go to, you know, how we're doing at essentially managing the workforce. And I think those topics would be of particular interest to the select board. So you know, you might maybe, if that feels like it's running long, then, you know, maybe less of the history, you know, just and more of that would probably be current and relevant and of interest, particularly since citizens themselves are actually asking us some questions about how we're managing the full-time equivalents.
Okay, excellent point. Thank you. Thank you. And I will include that in some way in this presentation. I mean, we did have, and I shared, I think at the last personnel board meeting, that there was input from the new select board members as to what strategic
Yes.
opportunity did the select board have in evaluating, assessing some of these FTE positions. So it seems to be a topic that is of importance, and
Yeah.
and certainly talking about it and bringing it up in some way. And we have not had, I have not had, Liz has not had any conversation with the town manager on this. So hopefully when we meet with her, we'll be able to give her a reading as to what we're hearing and maybe get her some kind of feedback.
Yeah, I got a number of people expressed that the information that was presented, which was basically a 3-year view, 24, 25, and 26 of FTEs by department, was, you know, information that was very illuminating and I think useful as the budget discussion progresses. And so I would encourage you to sort of take a look at that and think about how that might be reflected in the dashboard that you're also working with.
I've always thought that there could be some value. I mean, in my experience, we did the sales by number of employees. So we then had a metric in terms of number of employees, what the revenue, sales, and then you were able to track that. So it seems to me that there may be something similar, not the same, obviously, similar to be able to track FTEs to some other data point. Just again, for being able to have a basis for seeing growth or decline or from year to year. Anyway, something for the future to talk about.
Yeah.
Okay, any other items to come before the personnel board? I don't think we have anybody. Mark, thank you very much for hanging in there with us tonight. And thank you for the contributions, so. Okay, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
I'll move we adjourn. 6:32.
6:32, motion to adjourn, second,
Second,
and all in favor?
Yes.
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 Okay.